So this is my latest project I probably didn't need, but sometimes you just got to do something because you spent way too much time searching on Marketplace for one. And finally, you got to pull the trigger. So pulled the trigger on this 118,000 mile 09 Wrangler with needs work to be inspected. One of the main things was brakes are on the rear, like junk, rusted junk, and then you got some rust on the back, just in that corner. Say just, but just in that corner too, right there. And it's got gas cap loose message, so I'm guessing there's some kind of leak on the evap system. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. I'm gonna rip these running boards off because, well, the underside, I'll show you that, looks like it's been driven in the ocean, or AKA Vermont roads in the winter. So I'm gonna clean that up. I'm probably gonna spray some undercoating to try to stop that rust. But if you can see over there, and I'll get a better view, there's no backing plate on that rotor over there. So that needs to be fixed. And on the other side, I'll try to show it here. I touched it and it fell off. So, oh yeah, and there's absolutely no, a little bit of the skid plates missing because of the old corrosion. So that's the main things. There may be a minor exhaust leak, which I'll probably have to tackle too. But it does start, it does run, drove 60 miles, usual. The doors must leak on the Jeep because there's rust on the the doors must leak on this Jeep. So here's the inside. The leaky doors caused the old rust on the seat bracket. So come to find out after I bought this thing that I knew they leaked, but not so obvious that they leak all the time. So probably add some weather stripping. But other than that, the floor is not too bad. You know, got a hole, but that's probably, I don't know if that was a hole or if that was where one of those plugs are, if there's two plugs on these things or not. I'm gonna also do a general douching of this cleaning. Sorry, probably wasn't right. Cut that out. But yeah, project I didn't need, but sometimes you gotta get up your ass and just do something. Stop thinking about it. 09 Jeep. So one of the first things I'm gonna do is just clean this thing. It's just dusty and dingy. Already been vacuumed out, but just gonna give it a good clean. Wipe everything down and make it look better. There's the old gas cap. Don't mind the TPM sensor too. Guessing the batteries are junk. Tire door. Gas cap. Change oil. I think the oil was just changed because it's clean, but hopefully. So you got that gas cap thing. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Also, probably not a great sign that there's a quart of oil on the back, so I'm assuming that probably it uses oil. So far I've driven at 60 and it hasn't gone down, but cross your fingers. My work, this is probably where most of my work will be. I got some rust going on throughout the underside. I don't know if you can see it from here, but I have to get on the other side, but just a little bit of rust. Nothing rusted through from what I can tell, except for the floor in a couple spots. So I'm gonna clean this whole frame up and undercoat it with some undercoating, which we'll do that as another side project. A little bit more project than I want, but something to do. Just took the rear tire off, and here's what it looks like. It's got some good rust, brake line. Probably gonna need to get repaired because the hose goes to there. Yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure that out. PB blast the crap out of it, maybe. That looks factory. I'll get a flashlight here and show you the back of the rotor, but I shouldn't be able to touch the back of the rotor. In general rust, but nothing is rusted through. So I'll show you the back of the rotor. And there is the back of the rotor, sans backing plate. The pads aren't bad, but the rotors are bad. The back of the Jeep got crusties. Clean that up too. So I got the caliper off, used a 13 and a 15. Gotta hold it on that. And then there's one of these caliper bolts right here that was holding it on. So got a 13 and a 15 and back that right off. And then luckily caliper compressed, so there's no issue. So I don't know, we'll clean this off and see how bad. Might just replace the hose and try to, that doesn't really look bad if I can save that fitting. All right, so I got the top bolt off of the caliper bracket, 19 mil, took a little bit of finagling with the breaker bar, the 3/8 socket to a 1/2 inch with an extension because it was a little frozen, but that's off. And the next step is to get that caliper bracket off and take the rusty rotor off. There's the back of the rotor. And I forgot to mention the inside is where the e-brake is, but e-brake is, oh, there isn't any pads for the e-brake, nor is it hooked up right there, because that should be hooked up. So got new ones of those over there on the bench. All right, so I got the brake caliper off. Also just realized that I was filming it the wrong orientation, so hopefully you can see it better now if you're watching it on TV. But took that caliper off, had to use a 19 mil socket. On the bottom one, it came off relatively easy with the socket. Had to be 3/8 because it wouldn't fit in there with the halves, but on this one, this rod right here is in the way. So finally figured out this little assembly was what was able to reach in there and get me some leverage. Here's the back of the rotor, and the inside of the rotor is where the e-brake rides, and that is, well, there were no e-brake pads even on this thing, nor was it even hooked up, because that should have been hooked up to something on the back of this. So I've got a whole new backing plate assembly with the e-brake, which should be in that box is there from Rock Auto. So here's the new backing plate, and I got the bolts off the old backing plate. Weren't too bad, but mainly just a lot of rust. Get better light. A lot of rust on them, but there's one right here and another one right there, another couple. So there's 4 total. Loosen those. This thing's now loose, but I got to take the whole axle shaft out now, so it's the next step. But excited to have an e-brake here, I guess, soon. One other step here is you gotta take that wheel sensor out. So I gotta disconnect that wire and pop that wheel sensor out. So we'll do that right now. I think there's a little nut there on the bottom, that 8 millimeter nut's got to come out of there, and then that wheel sensor should just pull out. One other step here before I try to pull that axle shaft is I've got to get the wheel sensor out, which is that speed sensor right there, which has a little nut on the bottom, 8 mil, that's got to come out, and then I should be able to wiggle that whole thing right out of there. back on this Jeep project here. Got all the tires off. Still working on the brakes. Kind of got sidetracked here, but getting there. Got the backing plate on, and actually have emergency brake in the back now. Just gotta keep going on that. There's the old one. You can see. Still got that one, but here today to do rust removal, aka where's the skid plate for the fuel tank. Fix this rusty old, not fix it, but get it the hell out of here and throw a new one on there. So I'll do this together, but I'm guessing there's a couple of bolts right here I gotta deal with. A bolt right here gotta deal with, and looks like there's another one right there, and you start popping those out with the impact. Apologize, this is tight space, but I got a new one that I picked up on the old eBay, and that is right here. Can't believe how fast that thing came, but like 2 days it came. So I'm gonna strip that down and see what that looks like, but I can post a link for that. So here we go. So best I can tell, going after this first one, there's a lot of scale on the bolt. I probably should have picked up new hardware, but it was $40, and I want to make sure I don't put too much money into this thing, because I don't think it's going to be worth a lot when I'm done. But that's 11/16. I'm going to give it a zip. All right, here we go. Cross your fingers. Okay, do that about, I think, 8 or 9 more times, but 11/16. I have no idea if these Jeeps are metric. I probably have to figure that out. This is gonna be easier than I thought, I guess, but got the next one on. 11/16 still seems to be working here. I didn't lubricate these before, but I'm sure that would have helped, but these are coming. All right, I'm gonna turn that camera down so I can get a good grip. You're definitely gonna want, that thing's hot. You're definitely gonna want to probably spend the $40, because the threads are rotted, and then when you back them out, they don't come out easy. I'm gonna grind them just because I'm, like I said, cheap, and I don't really want to spend the money, but next time I probably would have. Just, it's not even just about cheap, it's just about having the, I don't want to have to wait. I just want this project done. But this thing is it's ridiculous. I don't understand why this is rotted so much, other than whatever their part manufacturer for the skid plate just bought the worst quality steel ever. So I got that one loose. I got 2 there. Let's just keep going with the next ones. This one in the back behind the rear wheel. All right, so I've got 4 of the bolts out. The one in the back, very back, was a struggle, and then I realized I could squirt oil into the frame and hit the bolt and let it penetrate for a while, so that helped. But you need an extension, and you're definitely gonna need an impact, because that thing was the one that was back. The very back of the tank was hard. But I'm on the hunt for the rest of these bolts. So there's one right there, and I don't know if there's one. There's got to be one on the way in the back, so bear with me here. I'm gonna skate on back here. This thing is so rusty. Apologize. Oh, we're gonna go after that, because I gotta sweep some of this stuff out. So Definitely want to hammer the socket onto it because it's gonna slip right off if you don't. At least if yours is this crusty. Maybe if you don't live in the spot northeast where they salt like it's you got low sodium diet. Oh, like you got low sodium when you need high sodium, because the roads around here are absolutely insane with salt. Okay, so new turn of events. There's another one right above this little strut one, directly above it, somewhere. Try to make the light come on. Right there. So that's right above that strut, about mid-tank. So I think as I'm looking at this, in order to get even this one in, this skid plate, the whole entire thing, I probably have to take that strut thing majigger off, which looks like it's a couple of bolts right here, because it's like the skid plate for the transfer. So there's a couple bolts there, and then one right there. So whatever, just zip it off. I might even make it easier to clean that skid plate off. So that's the next step. All right, so I'm on the other side. I'm gonna zip that knot off. I already got the two on the front of the transmission skid plate, which you can kind of see. There's some holes back there, and then that whole thing should drop off. And then I just gotta go get that bolt and that bolt. I think that's it. I can get rid of that stupid thing. This is actually gonna be better because the more skid plates I take off, the easier it is to clean everything. Needle scale it. All right, one last bolt. I got that one out right there. It's gone. That one took a little bit of finesse with an extension and a wobble and some more hammering, because then none of these fit perfectly. So last one is right there, that bolt right there. So I think that's just gonna be an extension because the bolt's at a slight angle, and that thing should drop down. So all right, here we go. So I'm an idiot. Oh, not exactly, but a little harsh. I knew this was in Jeep was metric. The brakes that I already started were in metric, and this probably will fit on without hammering for the most part, except for the ones that really got cruddy. But so I'm gonna realize that because I looked at every one of the bolts I just took out, and yeah, this doesn't need to be hammered probably nearly as much. I can't tell with all this rust, but so I'm gonna go with 18 millimeter because it actually fits pretty nice. So all right, so I've got the needle scaler that I purchased here, and from Harbor Freight, the small one, and I've put a lot of time into cleaning this old Jeep here, 09 Wrangler, that had a lot of rust underneath it, and spent several, I'd say probably like 4 or 5 hours needle scaling all of the rust. And this is how good of a job that needle scaler did, which I'll show some action video, but this is the finished product of rust removed. And you can kind of see right here, did a pretty good job. I'm gonna get ready here to undercoat it with some Woolwax. I'm probably gonna use black, but you can kind of see, went through everything. The back is not perfect, but it's close enough. And there's definitely like that tube in the very back here that would not tow anything because it's rusted, but the rest of it's not bad. It's pretty solid. So here it is before undercoating, but after. removing all the loose rust with the needle scaler, including off the diff and everything. Very impressed. It just made it a lot easier. Definitely recommend. Don't mind that little hole right there by the step. It's the only spot. Well, I won't say the only spot, but very few spots are rusted through. So, like I said, piles from needle scaling. Rust was bad. And just wanted to show you one other thing, the compressor I use, which I'm pretty happy with this purchase too. The McGraw 29 gallon oil filled compressor, super quiet. Keeps up more or less with the needle scaler, but sometimes I have to stop for a little bit to let it rebuild. But definitely better than having to get the big 60 gallon one. And it wasn't too off-putting to have to wait every once in a while, but it does a good job of running the needle scaler. Better than the pancake I had. So definitely recommend this thing right here. It's even got a digital meter, so I've got 3 hours into needle scaling, which is actually, well, I've got 3 hours into the pump running. So, but it pretty much ran most of the time. Thanks. So final step to this whole cleaning up the frame and undercoating. Here's the what it looks like before I start. And I've picked up some of this fluid Woolwax in a sprayer, black, and what it looks like after I spray it using that compressor there, which is, I wouldn't want to go any smaller because it still struggles to keep up a little bit, but that's after coating it. I could probably go a little thicker in a few spots, but that should stop the rust. Came down and I started spraying down the side. You can kind of see. All right, so here's the last step to my cleaning up the frame here. I picked up a sprayer, undercoat sprayer from Woolwax and some black undercoating. And started spraying. So there's what it looked like before and after. So I'm gonna go through the whole car, truck, Jeep, spray it all. I already sprayed this wheel well area, but it just kind of tidies it up from what it was. Pretty happy with it. I got these wand tips to deal with here, and they have, like, you can see, multi-directional and straight on, so that's probably how I'll finish it. But this is how it did look basically before spraying the Woolwax black. So got the whole Jeep to do before. It's the rust. There's the fuel tank that I'm halfway done with because I got a skid plate project to replace. So it's pretty easy. I'm probably overall like 4 hours into this frame cleanup. All right, at this point, I've removed the old backing plate that was pretty much rusted right out, and I've reinserted it. Slipped the new one on, and you put the axle in there, right there. Slide this whole thing in, and then re-bolt up those 4 bolts, and put the wheel sensor in right there. And there's a little bolt, reinsert that. So I've got all that back together. I did also spray undercoat the whole thing before nothing to do with brakes, but so I did get a little bit of stuff this undercoating right there. So I'm gonna zip that off with some cleaner. And then I can slap the wheel rotor on and put the new pads in. The other thing I did was on the caliper bracket, I cleaned it all off and zipped some paint on it. Some high heat paint, so caliper paint. All right, I'm gonna clean that off, slap the rotor on, and put the bracket on. All right, so here's the other side. This is what was left of it. Not much. I'll just shred it into pieces. I bought that one out. Just tap it on the side and it pops out. Just 18 mils on those nuts to back them off. 3/8 ratchet worked perfect. I just took the grinder and the grind with the brush, wire brush, and cleaned that all up. So now I've just got to slip the backing plate on, and just tip is to slip it onto there first, onto the e-brake, and then you can kind of just lever it on there. But almost there. Got this other side together, caliper on, pads on, rotor on, pretty cut and dry. Alright, so important to note with these rotors, I think they're Powerstops, I think is what I got. A link, I'll give a link, but this is just, you got to make sure you put the right side. Little sticker on there that says rear passenger. So I'm going to slide that right on there, bolt the caliper bracket on, bolt the caliper on, do a little cleaning of that, and this is done. Got the clean the caliper bracket up. Biggest thing to clean is make sure the right here where the pads slide in, but I gotta put those little clips in there first, so I'll go do that. Skipping steps here. Gonna slide these little clips in, and they're all exactly the same. Brand new ones, here are the old ones. These old brakes really weren't that old, but still lots of pad left on them. But the rotors were all rusted, so I'll slide these clips in. We just push in. Sorry about the chargers running in the background. I gotta get a new battery, that's next. But put the clips in, loaded up the caliper bracket with the pads. There's a little squeaker there when the brakes get low. That's gonna go on this side of the caliper where the bolts are, and not on that side. Took me a minute to figure that out, but try to save you a moment. So at this point, I'm pretty much ready to start driving the Jeep. Brakes are done, it's undercoated. Stuffed the fuel tank back in. Had a slight issue with breaking off the vent line, but got a little piece of brake line and JB welded it back. Got that in there. Never ended up getting new bolts, just reused the old ones, it was fine. But at this point, start driving it. Bought this for $2,800, calling it my $2,800 10,000 mile Jeep Wrangler challenge. See you on the next one.